Last time we talked about why your life isn't moving forward. We looked at the invisible chains that keep most people exactly where they are. The pull of comfort, the paralysis of fear, and the fundamental mistake of spending your energy on things you cannot control. And I gave you a practice to start with. 3 questions, 10 minutes, every night before you sleep. If you've already started doing that, good. Keep going. If you haven't yet, you will understand why after today. Because today we're going even deeper. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you were truly, completely bored? Not tired, not distracted, not switching from one app to another, genuinely, deeply bored. With nothing to do and nothing to look at. Think about it. When was the last time you sat alone with your own thoughts for more than 2 minutes without reaching for your phone? If you're struggling to remember, that's not an accident. And it's not your fault, but it is your problem. Because what I'm about to show you today is this. The world you live in has been engineered, deliberately, scientifically, at enormous financial cost, to make sure you never have to be bored again. And that engineering is destroying your ability to think, to focus, to create, to grow, and to build the life you say you want. If you stay until the end of this video, I'm going to give you a specific, actionable framework rooted in Stoic philosophy that will help you reclaim your attention in a world that is fighting for every second of it. This isn't about giving up your phone. It's about understanding what's happening to your mind, so you can stop being a passive victim of it and start being a conscious architect of your own focus. But only if you stay with me until the end. If this is the kind of content that makes you think, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell right now, because every episode in this series builds on the last, and the people following from the start are going to have a serious advantage. Part 1. The attention economy. What they don't tell you. Let's start with a fact that sounds simple but has enormous consequences. Every major technology company in the world, social media platforms, streaming services, news websites, apps of every kind, makes money in direct proportion to how much of your time and attention they capture. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a business model, and it has a name: the attention economy. In the attention economy, your focus is the product being sold. You are not the customer. You are the inventory. Your eyeballs, your clicks, your minutes, your emotional reactions, all of it is packaged and sold to advertisers. And because this is a competitive market, these companies have invested billions of dollars and employed some of the most brilliant engineers and psychologists on the planet to answer one specific question. How do we keep people from stopping? Not how do we help people, not how do we make people happier. How do we make it physically and psychologically difficult for someone to put down the device? Tristan Harris, a former design ethicist at Google, famously described the smartphone as a slot machine. Every time you pull to refresh your feed, you are pulling the lever on a slot machine. Sometimes there's something exciting, sometimes there isn't. That unpredictability, that variable reward, is one of the most powerful psychological hooks ever discovered. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive, the same reason people keep playing when they're losing. The brain releases dopamine not when you get the reward, but in anticipation of possibly getting one. The scroll is the anticipation. The next post might be the thing, maybe the next one. Just one more. This is not an accident. It was designed this way. Asa Raskin, the inventor of the infinite scroll, later said that he had accidentally created something that was getting people to spend 50% more time on apps than they intended, and he regretted it deeply. He estimated that infinite scroll alone wastes approximately 200,000 human lifetimes every day. 200,000 human lifetimes every single day. Now here's where it gets interesting. Seneca, writing in ancient Rome 2,000 years ago, described something he called the greatest thief of life. He wasn't talking about death. He wasn't talking about poverty or war. He was talking about something that was already happening in his time. A time of no smartphones, no social media, no internet. He was talking about fragmented attention, the endless movement from one thing to the next, never going deep, never being still, never allowing the mind to fully inhabit a single moment or thought. Gather and save the time which till lately has been forced from you or filched away or has merely slipped from your hands. Make yourself believe the truth of my words, that certain moments are torn from us, that some are gently removed, and that others glide beyond our reach. Moments torn from us, gently removed, slipping beyond our reach. He wrote those words before electricity existed. Imagine what he would say today, sitting in a world where entire corporations are devoted to tearing those moments from you, one notification at a time. Part 2. What distraction actually costs you? Most people think about distraction in terms of time. I wasted an hour on Instagram. I lost 20 minutes scrolling through news. That's real, but it's actually the smallest part of the cost. The deeper cost is cognitive. It's what happens to your ability to think. Cal Newport, author of Deep Work and one of the foremost thinkers on attention in the modern age, found that when you switch your attention from one task to another, your brain doesn't switch cleanly. It leaves behind what's called an attention residue, fragments of the previous task that keep firing in the background, degrading the quality of your focus on whatever comes next. In other words, every time you check your phone while working, writing, thinking, or creating, you don't just lose the 30 seconds you spent on the phone. You lose the quality of your thinking for the next 15 to 20 minutes. The mental clarity needed for real, meaningful work evaporates. Multiply that across a full day, a full week, a full year, and then ask yourself, what ideas have never been born? What projects have never been started? What potential has never been reached? Not because you didn't have the talent or the time, but because your mind was never quiet enough, long enough, to access the depth where those things live. Nicholas Carr, in his landmark book, The Shallows, made an argument that neuroscience has since supported. The internet is not just a tool we use, it is rewiring the architecture of our brains. Every time you follow a hyperlink, check a notification, or switch contexts, you are training your brain's neural pathways to favor rapid surface-level processing over sustained deep thinking. You are literally building a brain that is increasingly incapable of the kind of slow, deep, focused thought that produces wisdom, creativity, insight, and genuine understanding. You are, over time, becoming shallower, and the cruelest part of this is that you don't feel it happening. You don't wake up one day and say, I can no longer think deeply. It creeps in slowly. Your attention span shortens. Long books feel impossible. Long thoughts feel exhausting. You find yourself unable to sit in silence for 3 minutes, and you call it boredom. But it isn't boredom, it's withdrawal. Marcus Aurelius understood something that feels remarkably modern. Despite being the most powerful man in the world, he wrote obsessively about the need to protect his inner life from invasion. He had no social media, he had no smartphone, and yet he still had to fight for his own mind. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. He called the inner life a retreat, a place you go to find stillness, a sanctuary. But he also knew that this sanctuary required active defense. The world, his world of court politics, war campaigns, constant demands, was always trying to get in. Our world is no different, except our invaders don't come with weapons. They come with notifications, with perfectly engineered red badges on app icons, with autoplay, with infinite scroll, with the calculated, deliberate engineering of everything that makes it hard to stop. The outer walls of your attention are under siege, and most people don't even know there's a war happening. Part 3. How distraction kills your potential here is something worth sitting with. Almost every major breakthrough in human history, in science, in art, in philosophy, in business, came from a mind that was given time to be still. Isaac Newton developed his theory of gravity during a period of forced isolation. Cambridge University had closed due to a plague outbreak, and Newton retreated to his family home in Woolsthorpe for 18 months. No lectures, no correspondence, no noise, just silence and a mind allowed to go deep. He later called this period his annus mirabilis, his miraculous year. In those 18 months of enforced quiet, he developed calculus, his theory of optics, and the foundations of the law of universal gravitation. One of the most productive periods in the history of human thought, born entirely from stillness. What would Newton's annus mirabilis look like today if he had a smartphone, if he had Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and email, if his attention was being fragmented 50 times a day by engineers in Silicon Valley whose entire job was to prevent him from thinking? We don't know the answer, but we can be honest about what we suspect. The Stoics had a practice called prosoche, from the Greek meaning attention to oneself. It was one of the central practices of Stoic philosophy, and it referred to a constant, vigilant awareness of your own thoughts, impulses, and the things competing for your attention. Prosoche was not passive, it was active. It required constant effort, constant vigilance, constant redirection. The Stoics believed that your attention was the most precious resource you had, because your attention determined your thoughts determined your actions determined your character, and your character determined your life. Lose control of your attention, and you lose control of everything downstream. Epictetus put it this way: if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. Do not wish to seem knowledgeable, and if some regard you as important, distrust yourself. What he was warning against is the seductive pull of appearing informed, staying current, keeping up with what's happening. The constant need to know what is being said, what is trending, what everyone else is reacting to. In our time, that impulse is satisfied by a device in your pocket that has access to all of human opinion at every moment, forever. The Stoics would recognize this immediately. They would call it a distraction from what actually matters, the quality of your own mind and the direction of your own life. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, has an unusual reputation in the business world. He is known for doing almost nothing. He reads for 5 to 6 hours a day. He sits and thinks. He does not have a smartphone. He does not have a computer on his desk. He has, by his own account, a schedule so open and unscheduled that it would be considered almost scandalous by any standard measure of modern productivity. And he is, by any measure, one of the most productive people who has ever lived. His partner, Charlie Munger, put it plainly: the reason most people don't have great ideas is that they don't give themselves the time and space to have great ideas. They fill every available moment with input, information, content, noise. And so there is no room for the thoughts that could change everything. Buffett once said, "I insist on a lot of time being spent, almost every day, to just sit and think." That is very uncommon in American business. I read and think, so I do more reading and thinking and make less impulse decisions than most people in business. Less impulse, more depth. That is the Stoic formula. Part 4. The Stoic framework for reclaiming attention. To understand the Stoic solution to distraction, you first have to understand how the Stoics thought about desire. Because distraction, at its core, is not a technology problem. It is a desire problem. We are distracted because we want to be distracted. We reach for the phone because some part of us wants the dopamine hit. We check the notifications because some part of us is afraid of missing something. We consume content because it is easier and more immediately pleasurable than doing the hard thing that actually matters. The Stoics call this kind of desire pathos, a passion or emotion that pulls you away from reason and toward impulse. And they didn't try to suppress it through willpower alone. They argued that the way to overcome a false desire is to see it clearly. When you understand what a desire actually is, when you examine it with clear eyes and honest thinking, its power over you diminishes. Not because you've suppressed it, because you've seen through it. He who is everywhere is nowhere. That line is about travel, but it applies perfectly to attention. The person who is connected to everything is truly present for nothing. The person who consumes everything creates nothing. The person who is everywhere, on every platform, in every conversation, watching every trend, is, in the Stoic sense, nowhere. Marcus Aurelius described 3 disciplines that structured his inner life: the discipline of desire, the discipline of action, and the discipline of assent. I want to apply all 3 to the problem of distraction. The first is the discipline of desire, choosing what to want. Before you open an app, before you turn on the TV, before you reach for the phone, pause for a single moment and ask, is this something I genuinely want to do? Or is this a habit that's been programmed into me by people who profit from my attention? That pause, that half-second of awareness, is where your freedom lives. The second is the discipline of action, choosing what to do. The Stoics were extremely deliberate about what they committed their time to. They called this having a purpose, and they believed every hour of the day should be in service of something real, not entertainment, not consumption, something that builds, something that creates, something that contributes to the person you are becoming. The third is the discipline of assent, choosing what to believe and what to react to. This is perhaps the most important in our age. Every piece of content you consume is making a bid for your emotional attention. This is outrageous. This is wonderful. This is devastating. React, share, comment. The Stoics would say, you do not have to assent to any of it. You can observe and choose not to be moved. Cal Newport, in his book Deep Work, described what he found to be the most valuable skill in the modern economy: the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. He argued that this skill is both increasingly rare and increasingly valuable, and that those who cultivate it will thrive. This is almost identical to what the Stoics described as the practice of the ruling faculty, the hegemonikon, the part of the mind that governs attention, that directs thought, that chooses where to apply mental energy. Marcus Aurelius called it the inner citadel. It is the command center of your life, and like any command center, it can be defended or it can be overrun. The modern distraction environment is not just inconvenient. It is an assault on your inner citadel, and if you do not actively defend it, it will be taken. Part 5. Practices for defending your attention. Practice 1. The media fast. The Stoics regularly practiced voluntary deprivation, giving up something comfortable to sharpen their relationship with it. We talked about this in episode 1 as voluntary discomfort. Today I want to apply it specifically to information and media. Here is what I want you to try. For the next 7 days, do not consume any news. No newspaper, no news website, no news podcast, no news from social media. Not one single headline. I know the objections already. What if something important happens? What if I miss something critical? Here's the honest answer. Almost nothing you consume in the news has any direct effect on your life or requires your immediate attention. The vast majority of news content is designed to generate an emotional response, specifically anxiety, outrage, or urgency, because those emotions keep you engaged and coming back. If something genuinely important happens, you will find out. You always do. But what will happen in those 7 days without news is something remarkable. Your anxiety levels will likely drop. You will feel, slowly and strangely, more present. The mental bandwidth that was constantly consumed by the low-level hum of breaking news and manufactured outrage will start to free up. And you will begin to notice what your mind actually wants to think about when it isn't being told what to think about. The Stoics called this recovered mental space odium, meaningful leisure, time that belongs to you, filled with your own thoughts, not someone else's content. Practice 2. The single surface. Here is a simple, concrete practice borrowed from the Stoic principle of the undivided life for any task that matters to you: writing, studying, creating, planning, thinking. Commit to a single surface. One tool, one window, one page, one focus. Close every tab that isn't directly related to what you are doing. Put your phone in another room, not face down on your desk, not in your pocket in another room. Turn off notifications on every device. Set a timer for 90 minutes, and then work. What you will discover is that the first 10 minutes are the hardest. Your mind will keep reaching for something else. It has been trained to expect interruption. The absence of it will feel strange, almost wrong. Stay with it. After those first 10 minutes, something shifts. The mind settles. The thinking deepens. Ideas start connecting that couldn't connect in the noise. This is what the Stoics called the quality of full presence, and it is increasingly rare and increasingly powerful. Practice 3. The attention audit. This practice is rooted in the Stoic concept of self-examination. The evening review we discussed in episode 1 applied specifically to your attention. At the end of each day, before you do the evening review, spend 5 minutes answering this question. Where did my attention go today, and was that where I chose to send it? Not judging, just observing. You might find that you spent 3 hours on your phone and only remember choosing to spend 30 minutes. You might find that you intended to read but ended up watching videos. You might find a significant gap between where you thought your attention was going and where it actually went. That gap is information. An awareness of the gap is the beginning of closing it. Epictetus said that the first and most important practice is to watch your own mind, not the world. Your mind. Because the world will always offer you something to look at. The practice is choosing what you look at and what you don't. Part 6. The connection to the series. Let me take a moment to zoom out and show you the architecture of what we're building here. In episode 1, we looked at why your life isn't moving forward and found that the root causes are internal: comfort, fear, and misplaced energy. We gave you the evening review as your first daily practice. In this episode, we've gone one level deeper. We've looked at how the external world, the entire attention economy, the platforms, the algorithms, the engineered compulsions, is making those internal battles harder to fight. And we've given you 3 specific practices for reclaiming your mental real estate. But here's something I need you to understand. We have only scratched the surface. In episode 3, How Stoics Control Their Emotions, we are going to go inside the mind itself. We are going to talk about the emotional patterns that make distraction so seductive and self-sabotage so persistent. We are going to look at what Stoic philosophy says about the relationship between thought and feeling in a way that will completely change how you understand your own reactions. After that, we build into the hidden power of discipline, and then Stoicism and wealth. And by the time we complete Season 1, you will have a complete, interconnected framework for resetting your life from the ground up. Season 2, The Stoic Mind, takes everything from Season 1 and goes even deeper into fear, overthinking, mental toughness, and inner peace. Season 3, The Stoic Warrior, is where it all comes together: pain, silence, becoming unshakable, mastering yourself. You are building the foundation right now. Don't skip it. The practical solution, the attention architecture. I promised you something concrete. Here it is. This week, you are going to build what I call your attention architecture. A simple, Stoic-based structure that protects your most important mental resource. It has 4 components. 1. The morning window. 30 minutes, no screens. See, when you wake up, do not touch your phone for the first 30 minutes. Use that time however you want. Journal, stretch, sit in silence, review your morning questions from episode 1. The point is that the first thoughts of your day are yours, not someone else's algorithm choosing them for you. 2. 1 deep work block, 90 minutes, single surface. Every day, identify the single most important thing you need to work on. B. Set a 90-minute block, phone in another room, all notifications off, 1 task, 1 focus. Do this before noon if possible, when your prefrontal cortex is at its strongest. This is where your most important work lives. 3. The designated check-in, 2 to 3 times per day by schedule. Instead of checking your phone reactively, every time you feel the pull, Designate 2 or 3 fixed times per day to check messages and email. Morning, midday, early evening. Outside of those windows, the phone is put away. You are not available to everyone all the time. You are available to yourself. 4. The evening attention audit, 5 minutes before the evening review. Before you do the 3 questions from episode 1, spend 5 minutes answering. Where did my attention go today? Was it where I chose to send it? What pulled it away? What will I do differently tomorrow? This keeps you honest, keeps you self-aware, and closes the loop. 4 components. Built on one Stoic principle, your attention is not something that happens to you. It is something you exercise. The word attention comes from the Latin attendere, to stretch toward. The Stoics understood this. Attention is an active, deliberate act of reaching, and like any reaching, it requires direction. Without direction, it grabs whatever is closest. In our world, what is closest is always what someone else has placed there for their own benefit. The Stoic practice is to choose what you reach for. Every time, deliberately, until it becomes who you are. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Epictetus. Decide what kind of mind you want to have. Then, build the conditions for it every single day. Outro. Before you close this video, I want you to do one thing right now. In the comments below, write, "I own my attention." That's it. 3 words. Because this is not just an exercise. Writing it makes it real. And scrolling down to write something in the comments, and then doing it, is itself a small act of directed attention. You chose to do something intentional with the next 30 seconds, instead of letting the algorithm choose it for you. That is the beginning of everything we're building here. And think for a moment about the people in your life who you can see are stuck in this trap. The ones who are always on their phone. The ones who seem busy but aren't moving forward. The ones who say they'll start when things calm down, but things never calm down because they filled every moment with noise. Share this video with one of them. Not to lecture them, just because you know it might plant a seed. That is a Stoic act. Using your attention to create something that matters instead of consuming something that passes. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Turn on the notification bell because episode 3 is coming. How Stoics control their emotions, and it connects directly to everything we talked about today. You want to be there when it drops. I want to leave you with something Marcus Aurelius wrote in the Meditations. Words that have stayed with me since the first time I read them, because they capture something that feels almost impossible to hold on to in the modern world, but absolutely essential. Confine yourself to the present. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. 4 words, 2,000 years old, and more urgent today than they have ever been. The distraction machine is pulling you into the past, into old conversations, old news, old content. It's pulling you into the future, into anxiety, anticipation, manufactured urgency. It is doing everything it can to keep you from living in the only place where real life actually happens. The present moment, in front of you, right now. Confine yourself to the present. That is the counter move. That is the Stoic answer to the modern distraction trap. I'll see you in episode 3.